Welcome back and brace yourselves because the celebrity matrix is officially glitching, and the math is no longer matching in the chaotic world of hip-hop and boxing royalty. We've all been watching the drama unfold between Claressa Shields and Papoose, but what if I told you the entire romantic narrative we've been fed over the last year just blew up in spectacular fashion? It looks like Claressa is scrambling to control the damage after a devastating face-to-face interview left her completely caught off guard. You know the question I'm talking about, the one where she was put on the absolute spot and asked if Papoose even knows he's supposed to be getting her pregnant next year. Now she's firing back on social media, screaming from the digital rooftops that the internet is spreading nothing but lies. But wait a minute, why are the tables turning so quickly? Why does every single public appearance feel like a carefully calculated game of chess, while Remy Ma quietly steps back into the spotlight to reclaim her throne? Is Claressa genuinely locked into her upcoming August 15th training camp, or is she spending all her free time dropping random rap verses while Papoose sits in solo interviews completely rewriting the script? Today we are deep diving into the suspicious body language, the awkward nervous laughter, and the leaked timeline receipts that prove this family plan is completely unraveling. Is this a real future, or a PR loop spinning out of control? Sit tight because this gets messy. To understand how we arrived at this absolute circus, we have to go back to the exact moment the foundation started cracking. The main characters in this multi-layered saga, Claressa Shields, Papoose, and the ever-looming shadow of Remy Ma, have created a web of public relations contradictions that would make a seasoned politician sweat. For months, the narrative was simple and beautifully packaged for public consumption. We were told that a new powerhouse duo had emerged, combining the undisputed dominance of the boxing ring with the gritty old-school loyalty of hip-hop royalty. On the surface, it looked like a match made in media heaven. They were appearing on daytime television, sitting side by side on couches, smiling for the cameras, and feeding the audience a heavily romanticized version of their future. But if you look closely at the receipts, the timeline they constructed during that infamous Tamron Hall appearance last year was built on a foundation of sand. Back then, the energy was completely different because Remy Ma was keeping a low profile, allowing the public to read between the lines and assume whatever they wanted. The problem with creating a highly publicized fairy tale is that the public eventually expects you to deliver on the promises you made. During that 2025 interview, the world watched as a very specific structured timeline was laid out for the audience. The claim was that Claressa had a strict 4-fight contract to fulfill before she could even think about stepping away from the ring to start a family. Papoose sat there, nodding along, adding his signature nervous laugh, and confirming to the host that 2026 would be the year they welcomed a child together. It was a definitive statement made on national television. Fast forward to July 2026, and suddenly the goalposts haven't just been moved. They have been completely uprooted and thrown into an entirely different stadium. We are currently sitting in the exact year the baby was supposed to arrive, yet the narrative has conveniently reset itself. Now, the story is that she still has fights to handle this year, and the baby plans have been magically pushed to 2027. It is a perpetual loop of delays that is starting to make the entire situation look incredibly suspicious to anyone with basic analytical skills. This sudden shifting of gears is precisely why the internet exploded when an interviewer finally had the nerve to ask the million-dollar question face-to-face. When Mia or Maya, depending on which corner of the internet you ask, directly asked Claressa if Papoose was even aware of these supposed next-year baby plans, the reaction was telling. True investigative observation doesn't just listen to the words being spoken. It analyzes the immediate physical response. In that exact moment, the supreme confidence we usually see from the self-proclaimed GWAT completely evaporated. There was a visible pause, a sudden awkwardness, and a desperate attempt to laugh off a question that clearly hit a very sensitive nerve. Instead of standing 10 toes down and shutting the speculation down right then and there with concrete facts, she stayed relatively quiet. The real aggression didn't come until days later when she was safely behind a smartphone screen, firing off angry paragraphs on Facebook and replying to random fan pages. That delayed reaction is the ultimate red flag in this entire unfolding drama. If a narrative is completely true, and if you and your partner are in total alignment, you don't need a 3-day grace period to formulate a response. You don't need to wait until you are back in your comfort zone to start screaming that the media is spreading lies. The fact that she had to repost a year-old clip from the Tamron Hall show as her primary defense mechanism proves that she is clinging to a past version of Papoose that might no longer exist. She is using 2025 footage to fight a 2026 reality, completely ignoring the massive shift in dynamic that has occurred in the months since that daytime television appearance. What she failed to realize is that the audience has memories like elephants, and we have all noticed that Papoose's energy has drastically shifted from corporate daytime TV smiles to cold, hard boundary setting in his solo appearances. The plot thickens exponentially when you look at what happened immediately after that cozy daytime interview era ended. Papoose did something that sent shockwaves through the entire gossip community. He sat down for a solo interview with Vlad TV without Claressa by his side to manage the narrative. When a man is sitting in front of a camera by himself, without the pressure of a partner squeezing his hand or giving him cues, the unfiltered truth usually slips out. The host didn't hold back, bringing up old photos and asking direct questions about the true nature of their living situation. The response from Papoose was not just a mild correction. It was a devastating definitive blow to the entire public image Claressa had been cultivating. When asked if they were living together, his response wasn't a soft disclaimer about logistics or busy training schedules. It was a firm, repeated, unyielding statement that left absolutely no room for interpretation. Hearing a man say they are absolutely not living together after months of public speculation about a shared future changes everything. It completely invalidates the cozy domestic imagery that was being projected just months prior. There was no mention of a future move-in date, no explanation that they were waiting for the right house, and no hint that they were actively building a life under the same roof. It was the verbal equivalent of drawing a massive boundary line in the sand and making sure the entire world saw it. To make matters worse, the conversation quickly shifted to the topic of commitment, where it was revealed that despite numerous expensive gifts being exchanged over the months, there was never a ring. The repetition of that phrase alone sent Twitter into a complete frenzy, as viewers began to realize that the fairy tale might just be a one-sided script being pushed by one party, while the other party is actively looking for the exit sign. This brings us to the most calculated player in this entire chess match, Remy Ma. For a long time, people wondered how she would react to seeing her former partner so prominently displayed in the media with a younger, louder sports star. For months, she gave them absolutely nothing, choosing instead to focus heavily on her own career resurgence. She stepped back into the recording studio, landed significant movie roles, started making high-profile public appearances, and reminded the entire entertainment industry that she is a legendary figure who doesn't disappear just because the tabloids find a new distraction. Her silence wasn't weakness. It was a strategic waiting game. Now that the cracks in the Claressa and Papoose timeline are becoming glaringly obvious to the naked eye, Remy's music and recent cryptic commentary are hitting the public with maximum impact. People who initially criticized her for speaking out are now looking back at her old statements and realizing she might have known the true story all along. The contrast between how these two women are navigating the media space right now is stark. On one hand, you have Remy Ma, who is projecting an aura of absolute unbothered success, letting her work and her legacy do the talking. On the other hand, you have Claressa, who is currently supposed to be in the most intense phase of a world-class training camp for an August 15th fight, yet appears completely consumed by internet commentary. Anonymous sources close to the boxing circles have started whispering that the camp environment is far from focused. Instead of the grueling, isolated discipline required to maintain an undisputed championship status, the camp has allegedly turned into a content creation hub. Fans are scrolling through social media and seeing endless videos of her riding around in cars, engaging in online rap battles, and addressing fan pages rather than showing the raw, unfiltered sweat of a legendary fighter locked into her craft. The confusion reached an all-time high when Claressa recently uploaded a video that left the entire sports and music world scratching their heads. It was a clip of her attempting to rap in what looked like a makeshift studio setting, delivering bars with intense aggression. While she proudly labeled it as a rap performance, the internet was quick to tear it apart, questioning whether this was a legitimate attempt to transition into the music industry or just another massive distraction from her primary job. What made the video even more intriguing was the sudden appearance of Lyric, a figure well known to anyone who followed the early seasons of the rap game alongside major stars like Latto and producers like Jermaine Dupri. Lyric has her own complex history in the spotlight, particularly through her high-profile relationship with boxing star Shakur Stevenson, with whom she shares a young child. Seeing Claressa align herself with figures from the hip-hop reality TV world right before one of the biggest fights of her career has sent the speculation machine into overdrive. The running theory among critics is that she is desperate to maintain her relevance in the urban entertainment space, perhaps to keep up with the hip-hop energy that Papoose and Remy Ma naturally command. It looks less like a genuine artistic pursuit, and more like a forced attempt to prove a point to her detractors. But the boxing ring is a cold, unforgiving place that doesn't care about your social media metrics or your rap verses. If you are dividing your attention between Facebook feuds, rap videos with reality stars, and a highly complicated relationship timeline, the consequences inside the ring can be catastrophic. The public backlash is mounting daily, with fans openly asking which version of the champion they are supposed to believe, the one claiming to be locked into an elite training camp, or the one spending hours filming lifestyle content. What makes this entire situation border on the absurd is the mysterious disappearance of key figures who used to validate her musical ambitions. People are quickly pointing out that Maserati Bud, who was heavily involved in her previous musical endeavors and her notorious diss tracks, is nowhere to be found in this current setup. This sudden shift in her inner circle raises serious questions about who is actually steering the ship behind the scenes. Is she receiving sound professional advice? Or is she surrounded by yes-men who are encouraging her to chase viral internet moments at the expense of her athletic legacy? The timeline is ticking down rapidly toward August 15th, and yet the headlines surrounding her name have absolutely nothing to do with her training adjustments, her sparring partners, or her strategy for the upcoming bout. Instead, the entire world is stuck in a loop, debating a series of contradictory interviews that took place nearly a year ago. The deeper you dig into the public record, the more it feels like a coordinated effort to keep a dying narrative alive on life support. The constant recycling of the Tamron Hall clip feels less like a proud trip down memory lane, and more like a desperate legal defense presentation. It is as if she believes that if she plays the video enough times, it will magically erase the fact that Papoose later looked a camera dead in the eye and denied living with her. The audience is no longer buying the illusion because the math simply does not add up, and the body language speaks louder than any typed caption ever could. As the digital pressure continues to build to a fever pitch, the focus remains entirely fractured, leaving everyone to wonder how much further this story can bend before it completely breaks under the weight of its own deception. The fracture between the public performance and the private reality becomes even more glaring when you examine the mysterious background audio of these recent interactions. During the most controversial segment of that face-to-face interview, viewers were led to believe that Papoose was actively validating the timeline from somewhere off camera. The rumor mill instantly claimed that his voice could be heard muttering a definitive agreement in the background. But if you strip away the digital noise and look at the raw footage, his actual voice is completely missing from the audio track. The audience never actually hears him speak those words. This creates a massive investigative gap that the internet has been trying to fill for the last 72 hours. It raises the distinct possibility that the agreement was entirely fabricated in the post-production narrative, or pushed by a team desperate to maintain the illusion of a united front. When a celebrity couple has to rely on phantom background confirmations to convince the public that they are on the same page, the underlying structure is already severely compromised. It shows a level of desperation that usually precedes a massive public relations collapse. The timing of this entire spiral could not be worse for Claressa's professional standing in the sporting community. A world-class boxing camp requires an almost monastic level of isolation and mental clarity. You are preparing to step into a ring where another elite athlete is actively training to take everything you have built. Yet, instead of reviewing tape of her opponent or working on her conditioning, the champion is actively engaging with low-tier gossip vlogs. She is letting random internet commentators dictate her daily emotional state. This lack of focus has sent shockwaves through her core fan base, who are accustomed to seeing an athlete of unparalleled discipline. The contrast between her current behavior and her historical approach to fight week is staggering. In the past, she would disappear from social media entirely, entering a dark space where only the sport existed. Now, her digital footprint is expanding by the hour. Every new post feels like a defensive reflex, an attempt to clap back at a public that has simply decided to use its own eyes and ears. The underlying anxiety seems to stem from a very specific demographic milestone that has been floating around her public bio for years. For a long time, Claressa openly stated that her ultimate personal goal was to become a mother by the age of 30. It was a narrative she pushed heavily in print interviews and early television profiles. It mapped out a perfect trajectory where she would conquer the boxing world entirely in her 20s, and then seamlessly transition into a domestic life of motherhood and family building. However, according to the official timeline, that milestone has already come and gone. Depending on which official record you consult, she is currently navigating her early 30s, meaning the self-imposed biological clock is ticking louder than ever. This explains why she is so intensely defensive about the baby plans being pushed back year after year. Admitting that the timeline has stalled means admitting to her audience, and perhaps to herself, that life has not gone exactly according to the master plan she broadcasted to the world. This is where the psychological weight of the situation begins to impact her brand. When an athlete bases their entire identity on being the absolute greatest and having total control over their destiny, any sign of external chaos feels like a threat. The fact that her family plans are seemingly dependent on the shifting whims of a partner who refuses to even move into the same house is a massive blow to that public persona of total dominance. She is learning the hard way that you cannot force a relationship to adhere to a strict training schedule. Meanwhile, the contrast with Papoose's past behavior is causing serious debate among relationship analysts online. People are frequently pointing back to the legendary devotion he showed during his previous marriage to Remy Ma. For nearly a decade, through some of the most difficult and high-profile adversities imaginable, that man was the literal blueprint for public loyalty. He stood by her side unconditionally, managed her affairs, and spoke about her with a level of absolute certainty that became famous across hip-hop culture. When you compare that historical level of commitment to the awkward, laughing, boundary-setting version of Papoose we are seeing today, the difference is night and day. He is simply not moving with the same energy. His refusal to commit to a marriage ring or a shared home with Claressa speaks volumes to an audience that remembers exactly what he looks like when he is truly all in on a woman. The nervous laugh that keeps popping up in his solo interviews isn't just a quirk. It is a defense mechanism used by a man who knows he is being trapped in a narrative he didn't fully sign up for. The internet's collective memory was triggered heavily when critics connected that specific laugh to his reaction during the old 50 Cent controversy. Years ago, when the media mogul shared an old provocative photo of Claressa from her past, Papoose was put on the spot during a live broadcast. His reaction back then was the exact same awkward, deflecting chuckle that we heard on Vlad TV when the living situation was brought up. It is the laugh of a man who is trying to survive a public segment without causing an international incident, rather than a man standing up for his partner with genuine conviction. This repetitive pattern of behavior has completely shifted the public's sympathy in a way that Claressa clearly did not anticipate. In the beginning, the public was more than willing to cheer for the new couple and celebrate their apparent happiness. But as the contradictions have mounted, the audience has begun to feel like they are being manipulated by a carefully orchestrated PR campaign that lacks any real substance behind closed doors. The skepticism has turned into outright mockery on platforms like TikTok and X. What makes the situation even more complicated is the involvement of Lyric and the wider music circle. Lyric's presence in Claressa's recent content indicates a desire to pivot into an entirely different social sphere. By surrounding herself with individuals who are deeply embedded in the reality television and hip-hop world, Claressa appears to be trying to build a secondary identity that doesn't rely on her athletic achievements. It is a classic branding pivot, but one that is being executed at the absolute worst possible time. Her critics are pointing out that this musical distraction looks remarkably similar to the path taken by many athletes whose careers are nearing the twilight phase. When the desire to grind in the gym begins to fade, the allure of the recording studio and the lifestyle content creation machine becomes incredibly attractive. But Claressa is still holding multiple world titles. She is not a retired legend looking for a hobby. She is an active fighter with a massive target on her back, and her opponents are undoubtedly watching this public circus with absolute delight. The financial aspect of this drama also raises serious questions about the truth behind her public declarations. She has frequently boasted about a massive 4-fight contract worth $8 million, presenting herself as one of the highest-paid female athletes in the history of combat sports. But boxing insiders know that these massive promotional announcements often come with heavy contingencies, network options, and specific performance clauses that are rarely disclosed to the public. If she has only completed a fraction of that contract, her sudden attempt to fit a pregnancy into the timeline would likely trigger severe legal and financial penalties from her promoters. A multi-million-dollar network deal doesn't just pause because an athlete decides to change their personal plans. This economic reality is likely the true reason behind the constant shifting of the baby timeline. Yet instead of simply explaining the business side of sports to her fans, she is choosing to frame it as a personal choice about kicking more girls' asses. This lack of transparency is what ultimately alienates the core sports audience. Boxing fans appreciate raw honesty above all else. They understand contract obligations and the harsh realities of athletic prime years. If she stood before the public and stated that she was prioritizing her financial future and her promotional obligations over her personal life, the public would respect the hustle. Instead, the constant deflection and the aggressive social media attacks create an atmosphere of intense distrust. The narrative loop is now spinning so fast that it is beginning to consume everyone associated with her inner circle. The absence of her longtime musical collaborator Maserati Bud is highly indicative of a larger fracture within her management team. When an athlete's inner circle undergoes a sudden, quiet purge right before a major event, it usually points to an internal disagreement about direction and focus. She is operating without the traditional support systems that guided her to the top of the mountain. As we move closer to the August milestone, the pressure on her performance is reaching an unprecedented level. She has created a scenario where a victory will barely satisfy her critics, while a defeat will completely destroy the carefully constructed myth of her invincibility. The public is no longer just invested in her boxing skills. They are waiting to see if the weight of her personal life will finally cause her to crack under the lights. The stage is set for a dramatic confrontation, but the real battle is happening entirely inside her own head. The breakdown of this public narrative is forcing viewers to analyze what happens when a meticulously manufactured media campaign meets the cold, hard walls of legal and professional reality. The underlying tension of this entire saga goes beyond simple internet rumors or relationship gossip. It has now escalated into a deeper debate about brand protection and public accountability. When an elite athlete is operating under a highly scrutinized multi-million-dollar corporate contract, every single public statement acts as a pillar holding up a massive financial infrastructure. The public backlash is hitting an all-time high because the internet has officially decoded the pattern of behavior. For months, the strategy relied on absolute distraction, using lifestyle content and vague social media posts to bury the glaring contradictions in the relationship timeline. But the modern entertainment consumer is highly analytical, and they are no longer satisfied with superficial answers. They want to know why a relationship that was presented as an absolute certainty on daytime network television is now being dismantled piece by the very individuals who built it. This level of public scrutiny is creating a visible strain on Claressa's digital management team, who are struggling to keep up with the overwhelming wave of critical commentary. Every time a new video drops, whether it is a clip from a training gym or a random musical session with reality television figures, the comment section instantly transforms into an investigative forum. Fans are demanding absolute clarity on the status of the fight contract, the unresolved divorce proceedings between Papoose and Remy Ma, and the constant shifting of the biological timeline. The entire situation serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of mixing high-stakes professional athletics with reality television drama. A boxing legacy is built on a foundation of absolute focus and undeniable sacrifice, but that legacy can easily be tarnished when the public begins to view the athlete as a social media content creator rather than an elite world champion. The contrast between her historical sports dominance and her current online defensive posture is creating a massive branding crisis that could have long-term financial consequences. What makes this final phase of the controversy so captivating is the complete silence from the corporate partners and promoters who are funding this entire operation. Major networks and promotional companies do not invest millions of dollars into an athlete just to watch their main event attraction become a permanent fixture on low-tier gossip vlogs. There are whispered reports circulating within the sports industry that high-level meetings are taking place behind closed doors to address the massive distraction this public relations circus has become. If the upcoming August 15th milestone does not deliver a spectacular, flawless performance inside the ring, the fallout will be immediate and severe. The sports media will not be kind to an undefeated champion who spent her entire training camp arguing with fan pages on Facebook and dropping unreleased rap verses. She has backed herself into a corner where anything less than absolute perfection will be viewed as a direct result of her fractured attention and personal chaos. Meanwhile, Papoose continues to navigate the space with a level of strategic detachment that is driving the internet absolutely insane. By keeping his public commentary strictly focused on his executive business moves and his independent musical projects, he is quietly allowing the romantic narrative to fade away without ever having to issue a dramatic public statement. It is a masterclass in modern public relations management, leaving his partner to bear the full weight of the public backlash alone. The absolute turning point in public perception occurred when the audience realized that the original timeline was never grounded in practical reality. You cannot pause a highly competitive professional career, navigate a massive corporate promotional agreement, and manage an intensely complicated personal dynamic without something eventually breaking under the pressure. The constant shifting of the goalposts from 2026 to 2027 is no longer being viewed as a simple adjustment. It is being seen as a complete admission that the original plan was an illusion. As the digital landscape continues to evolve, the demand for authentic, unfiltered truth is forcing these celebrities to realize that they can no longer control the narrative with old television clips. The receipts are permanently archived, the interviews are constantly being compared side by side, and the body language is being dissected by millions of viewers across the globe. The circle is officially complete, and the narrative has run out of room to maneuver. This brings us to the final ultimate question that everyone in the commentary community is trying to answer. What is the actual endgame for this entire public relations campaign? If the goal was to create a massive wave of viral engagement, then they have certainly succeeded beyond their wildest dreams. But if the goal was to build a credible, long-lasting partnership that could withstand the intense pressure of the entertainment industry, the current foundation looks incredibly unstable. The audience is left watching a slow-motion collision between public expectation and private reality, waiting to see who will be the first to break the silence and admit the truth. The era of corporate smiles and carefully managed daytime couches is officially over, replaced by the raw, chaotic energy of live streams, social media comment sections, and independent investigative breakdowns. The tables have not just turned, they have been completely flipped upside down, leaving the entire narrative in absolute ruins. Now that we have completely broken down the entire timeline, analyzed the shifting receipts, and exposed the massive contradictions between the corporate interviews and the solo breakdowns, the true picture is starting to emerge. The entertainment world is a high-stakes game where the truth always finds a way to the surface, no matter how many social media paragraphs are used to bury it. The countdown to August 15th is officially active, and the world will be watching every single move. What do you think is really happening behind the scenes with this constantly shifting timeline? Do you think the family plans were ever actually solid, or was this entire narrative just a carefully calculated play for media relevance? How do you think Remy Ma's silent power move is going to impact Papoose's next move? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another deep dive exposed into the real truths behind the celebrity matrix. And that is exactly where we are going to leave this story for today, because the timeline receipts are finally out, and the public is refusing to be blinded by the smoke and mirrors anymore. When you look at how fast these corporate narratives are crumbling under the weight of real investigative scrutiny, it makes you wonder what other hidden truths are waiting to be uncovered behind the scenes of your favorite celebrity couples. The chess pieces are moving rapidly, the countdown to the August 15th milestone is ticking away, and the entire entertainment world is waiting on absolute pins and needles to see who makes the next public blunder. But now, I want to hear directly from all of you in the comments section below. Do you think Claressa's frantic social media damage control is enough to save her narrative? Or has Papoose's firm, independent boundary setting already sealed the deal? Are we looking at a genuine relationship that is simply weathering a media storm? Or was this entire family timeline just an elaborated script designed to capture viral headlines from day one? Let me know your unfiltered theories down below. If you want to stay ahead of the game and ensure you never miss another deep dive exposed into the hidden machinery of the celebrity world, make sure to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on that notification bell right now. Stay skeptical, stay watching, and I will catch you all in the very next breakdown.